Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. I'm Grant Cunningham, and this is the show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to explore how you can prepare and equip yourself to face that worst case scenario and keep you and your family safe from harm. Now, we don't do religion or politics on this show, so you're not going to hear any crazy fringe commentary or conspiracy theories, just reliable, authoritative information that you can put to use right away. And I'll tell you, if you enjoy this show, if you enjoy our reasonable and practical and responsible approach to self-defense and preparedness and all that stuff, would you do us a favor? Share the show with your friends, share it with your family, maybe your coworkers, your neighbors, people you go to church with. If you would just share the show and tell them about all the great information that we put out here at Training Talk and at Personal Defense Network, well, I'd sure appreciate it. And I'm sure they would too. That I'm sure they'll think that you've thought enough of them to share this life-saving, life-affirming information with them. So do share away. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you are out in the social media world, please do share the show. Well, welcome back for those of you who are returning, and welcome for those of you who are new viewers. Thank you for taking time out of your Thursday evening to tune in. It's almost Thanksgiving. Gosh, Thanksgiving is coming up next week. The weather here in Oregon has finally turned cold, and it should have done this a long time ago, but it finally turned cold. I'm now in my winter uniform of turtlenecks and fleece pullovers, at least for the duration. I don't know about you, but it never really seems like, well, two things have to happen for it to seem like a holiday season. First, the weather has to turn cold, of course. And the second thing that has to happen is that the Charlie Brown Peanuts specials come on the air every year. Of course, you know the Halloween one and the Thanksgiving one, and of course the Christmas one. And I watch these every year, and that's how I know that it's a holiday season. And I never miss them. And yes, I know that there are at least 3 people out there, and you know who you are, who are thinking, well, did they even have TV back when he was a kid? Yes, I've been watching these things all my life. We actually had TV back then. Don't judge me. All right. So we have a great show coming up for you tonight. In just a few minutes, we're going to have Rob Pincus on, the managing director here at Personal Defense Network. And we're going to talk a little bit about reality-based training, what it is and why it's important. And then in the second half of the show, we've got our medical expert, Caleb Causey from Lone Star Medical on, and he's going to talk about medical kits that you can carry with you, minimalist medical kits, everyday carry medical kits that you can have on with you in case you need them. And we're big fans of trauma care here at Personal Defense Network, learning how to deal with trauma. So stick around, because that's going to be a great segment with Caleb. But first, it's that time of the show, of course. Yes, you know it, you love it. Grant's Rant. And boy, I've got a doozy for you this week. They're out of the, and I wish I could bring this up and show you this, but this is from the Indianapolis Star newspaper, and it's one of those sites that you only get to read so many news stories on every month. And I'm over my limit. Of course, I don't live in Indy. I don't subscribe to the paper, and so I don't have access to it. But I did manage to at least write down the pertinent parts of the story. And as I said, this is a doozy. It seems that in Indianapolis one Sunday morning, a 4-year-old girl found her parents' handgun in their nightstand. And they were apparently asleep. The child started playing with the gun, managed to pull the trigger, and put a bullet through her cheek and into the back of her mother's head. And the sound of the gunshot woke the father up, and of course called ambulance and all that kind of other stuff. Now, there was also a 2-year-old child in the room, and according to the newspaper report, several other children in the household. Now, first things first, no life-threatening injuries. They both went in for surgery, but they both survived. However, I think this points up something, and this is something we've talked about before here on Personal Defense Network, is being a responsible gun owner. If you have a firearm that you keep for home defense, it is imperative, it is incumbent upon you to secure that firearm so that kids can't get to it, so that unauthorized people in general can't get to it. This is it's of course you're right to have a firearm to protect yourself, but it along with rights come responsibilities, and the responsibility that goes with this right is to keep it out of the hands of unauthorized people. We talked a little bit about this on the last show, in fact, with Clint Macro, where we talked about the storage devices that you can get to keep your gun in. And if you have children in the house, you do need to secure that gun. If it's not on your person, it needs to be locked up so that they can't find it. I know some people will hide the gun. I'm sure that they thought their gun was hidden in the nightstand, but a 4-year-old child knows everything that's in the house, and they know where it is and they can get to it. Up on a high shelf doesn't count. Hidden someplace doesn't count. You need to secure it. Now, in this is 2016, almost 2017. We have the devices, the technology today to store a handgun in a condition to be ready to use to defend yourself or your family if you need it. And I know a lot of people say, gosh, I don't want to secure my gun because I might need it immediately in the middle of the night if somebody breaks into the house. Well, two things about that. First of all, of course, is that the modern quick access safes that we have are great in terms of being able to store the gun and still be able to access it very, very quickly. That's number one. Number two, part of your home defense plan needs to be some sort of an early warning system. Now, you can certainly have an alarm on the windows and on the doors that will let you know somebody breaks in. But if you don't want to do that, or that's expensive because those alarm systems do cost money, a very low-tech solution, and it works very well, is to get one of those annoying little dogs. You know the kind that I mean, that people take into the stores in the handbags, on their shoulder, and little dog peeks out. They go yap, yap, yap all the time. Those are perfect. It doesn't need to be some big trained Rottweiler to serve as an early warning device, even one of those little yappy dogs. In fact, the yappy dogs are probably better because anybody comes to the door, they'll start yapping. Anybody tries to break into a window, they'll start yapping. That is your early warning device that gives you the time to get to the quick access safe and get it open and get your defensive firearm out. Now, I understand that a lot of people will look at the price of one of these quick access safes and probably have a heart attack, but there's a huge range of prices for these things. You can spend $300 or $400 on one, certainly, but you can also get one for under $100. The important thing is that you be able to operate it when the lights are out. So that means no keys, no turnable, combination dials. That means something that you can get fingers on in the dark, and it can be either mechanical or electronic. It really doesn't matter. Punch in the code with your fingers and get to the gun. Of course, the more expensive models come with electronic locks and RFID and biometric fingerprint readers and all that sort of thing. Those are great. If you've got the money, certainly invest in one of those. But if you don't, get a quick access box that you can store the gun in so the kids can't get to it, and be sure to bolt or screw that box down to the floor or to a wall or something so somebody can't walk off with it. And another little pro tip here, if you do have one of these lock boxes, make sure you get, or that you put a flashlight, a high intensity flashlight in that box with your defensive firearm, because kids like to play with these things. Who knows, if you have it beside the bed or next to the box, sooner or later the kids are going to find the flashlight, they're going to grab it, they're going to use it to find the cat under the bed or that little yappy dog you've got under the bed, and they might leave it on and the batteries wear down, and then when you need it you pick it up and you don't have any light. Keep one in the box with your defensive firearm so that you know when you pull it out that you've got light. So that's a pro tip. But important, don't if you know somebody that's got children, make sure, and they have a defensive firearm, make sure that they've got a lockbox to keep it in, a quick access safe of some sort to keep it in. Now, I know you're thinking, well, my kids are grown, I don't have to worry about this. Well, do they bring your grandchildren over to visit? Yeah, you have to worry about it then too. If you have friends that come over and visit, yeah, you have to worry about them too. And don't tell me you don't have any friends. Look at me. I have friends and I look like this. Okay. I know you've got friends. Make sure that if you have people in your house, that if it's not on your person, that you have it locked up, and prevent tragedies like this from happening. You know, for the cost, he had the poor fellow whose daughter pulled the trigger on this gun. He's obviously got surgery for his daughter to pay for, surgery for his wife to pay for. That could have bought 50 quick access safes for the money he's probably going to spend just in medical bills. And thankfully, again, nobody was killed, but this just underscores the need to make sure that if your defensive handgun is not on your person, that it is secured against unauthorized access. So that's my rant for today. My best wishes to the people in Indianapolis for whom this tragedy occurred. So it's time for our first segment of the show. We have on tonight Rob Pincus, the director here at Personal Defense Network, and we're going to talk a little bit about reality-based training, what it is, and why you might want to look for reality-based training. So, Rob, are you there? Well, I can see him, and I don't hear him.
Sharing social media that we were going live.
Oh, okay, good. Well, we need to tell social media about this because it's important, right?
Always.
Oh, great. So, Rob, good to see you again. Thanks for coming on the show on short notice.
Yeah, so it's kind of a slow time of year for me as far as travel goes and teaching, getting ready to head into the holidays. And I'm out here at the Western headquarters taking care of some day-to-day stuff around the house, hanging out with baby Pincus, but still, very interested in continuing the conversation. Even though it's not a busy time of the training year, a lot of people are planning for their training they're going to do in the spring and next summer, and thinking ahead, looking for different types of classes. And a lot of classes out there are labeled somewhat in a marketing way, whether it's reality based or practical or tactical or whatever words people use. I think it's important to really define that and make sure people understand what to look for other than just a catchphrase or a buzzword.
Okay, so cool. Let's start right at the beginning. What is reality-based training? What does the phrase mean?
Well, reality-based training, and I think these definitions are important, and our definitions, as usual, may not agree with the way a lot of other people use them, but I think it's important to ask them to define reality-based training as well, if they're using the term. For me, reality-based training is simply training that is contextually appropriate for the student.
Okay, so where does, when we talk about reality-based training, where does the term force on force fit into that definition?
So force on force is an example of training that can be reality-based, or it could just be complete fantasy camp. It could, isolated simulation drills. There are a lot of things that have been done, whether it's with, the old wax bullets or marking cartridges or paintball guns or simunitions, ATK's new force on force round conversion kits. There's a lot of things that have been done, miles gear in the military, that could be very reality based or could be just a colossal waste of time and resources. And, it's just like live fire training, right? I consider the combat focus shooting program a reality based training program. It's not force on force. It's not a scenario day. But when we're out there on the range, we're doing things that hopefully are contextually appropriate for the student. They're based on reality. And using RBT or reality-based training as a catchphrase for force on force or scenario training, even, which is really what bridges the gap there, I think is the mistake that people make. So, I just had to correct someone inside of one of our programs recently, one of our defensive firearms coaches, for calling their area they were doing scenario training the reality-based training room. Right? Well, if your classroom is in a reality-based training room, you're doing it wrong. If your live fire range isn't a reality-based training room, you're doing it wrong. So what you're actually talking about is a scenario room. So there's force on force, which is any time that you're going to use any type of marking cartridge, or you're going to put impact onto someone else. So you could be, it requires safety gear. That's kind of one of the big indicators that it's force on force training. So it requires safety gear, whether it's padding so that you can punch one another, or it's going to be safety glasses so that you can do things with where you don't want to get poked in the eye, or you're just going to wear throat protection, face protection, groin protection, gloves, the full kit, so that you can actually shoot marking cartridges from simunitions and other conversion kits at one another at relatively close quarters. That's going to be force on force. So force on force is going to be training which involves protective gear, because there is the anticipation of students either coming into contact with one another or using implements or projectiles to apply force to one another. It's, again, these definitions aren't complicated. They're actually pretty literal if you think them through. And scenario training is really the key to what most people are looking for. And I think that's the trick, is that what people are looking for when they say reality-based training or force on force is probably, or they should be looking for, is scenario training. Scenario training is going to be an emotionally charged training environment that forces decision-making about which skills or tactics to apply and when to apply them. So there's two things. There's the emotional distraction, sort of, that there's an emotional component to it. People immerse themselves in this simulation, this scenario. And then there's decision making. And the decision making is what distinguishes something between a simulation and a scenario. If it's a simulation of a defensive shooting, you're going to go into this room and there's going to be a bad guy. You have to identify the bad guy and then shoot him. That's just a simulation. You go in knowing what you're going to have to do. There really isn't much of a decision-making tree. On the other hand, in a scenario, you go into the room and the scenario may be, okay, you're going into a convenience store. You're going to find a bottle of water. You're going to pick up the bottle of water, go to the counter, buy the bottle of water, and then leave. And you don't know what else is going to happen in there. You know, you're in a training environment, so something else is probably going to happen. But the decision of whether to sneak out the back door, to hide, to walk in and realize something's wrong and just walk out, the need to draw your gun or when to draw your gun and be an observer, draw your gun and engage a threat, draw your gun and shoot someone, verbalize. Maybe it's going to be pepper spray that you need. Maybe it's going to be throw the bottle of water as a distraction and run out the front door and get away. You know, there's a lot of different things that can happen in a scenario. Now, the role players and the instructors should know exactly what's going to happen, but the student going in should be in that emotionally charged environment and forced to decide which tactics or skills to apply and when to apply them. And that may be force on force, or it may be people just walking in a suspended state of disbelief. In other words, is walking in and saying, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm in a convenience store. I'm going to pretend that all these things are going on around me. And you just have a blue gun, in your holster under your jacket. And when you pull that blue gun, that's a decision-making process. And that may be all we want to evaluate. I don't use scenarios to evaluate marksmanship quite often. So if we're not evaluating marksmanship, then why bother with the marking cartridges and the gear and the protection and all that stuff, when all I really want to see is the timing on when someone would choose to use their gun, if at all, in a scenario. So there really are three things: reality-based training, contextually appropriate to the student, could be live fire, could be a lecture, could be the scenario. There's force on force, where you have to wear protective gear because we anticipate that the students are going to come in contact or use implements or projectiles to bring force to one another, or between role players and students. And that's when it's force on force. And then in the middle of all that is scenario training. And scenario training is that emotionally charged environment where there's decision making about what tactics or skills to apply, and specifically when to apply them based on what's going on around you.
So I think one of the interesting things that I think is that a lot of people think of reality-based training as a specific activity, and what you're saying is that reality-based training is in fact an educational approach, not not a specific activity. Correct?
Absolutely. Only people that aren't educating, people that are just kind of going through the motions or categorizing things in an incredibly simplistic way. And again, some of that driven by marketing and advertising, are going to think that all reality-based training involves shooting marking cartridges at one another. That's just that's a flaw. Somebody who thinks that live fire training can't be reality-based, that it's got to be isolated marksmanship and target shooting practice, and then in some scenario way you're going to learn how to apply the skills that in a way that matters, well, you're just wasting time. Why not start from day one, hour one, on the range, doing things in a way that's realistic, reality based?
From the student's perspective, why is it important that their training be reality based?
Well, just maximizing the value of resources, right? Like, why go out and learn how to do something in a completely different context than you may be forced to use it when you can learn how to use it in a way that is contextually consistent with the way you're going to need to use the skill. If for example, my wife has taken up sewing, right? So she's been making the baby dresses and all this kind of stuff. Well, if she went and took a class and she learned how to sew, but she learned how to sew in a very controlled, vocational technical school, or in the back of Joann's Fabrics with a sewing machine that is completely radically different from hers. Of course, she'd pick up some things of great value, but when she came home to her sewing machine, if the buttons were different, if the settings were different, if the capabilities were different, more or less, then all of a sudden the things she learned are going to have to be tweaked. So it would have been way more valuable for her to take her sewing machine to that class, or to do some distance education where she learns online but learns with her machine, or brings an instructor in here to the house where she can go into her craft room and have someone actually teach her how to use her sewing machine in her sewing room in a way that makes sense. And that's going to be so much better. So is that harder? Sure, it's harder. It's harder to be creative as an instructor and meet a student's context. It's harder as a student to not just isolate a certain skill set, but really to learn it in a way that makes more sense. It may be more expensive. It may be harder to find classes that do that. Certainly there's huge value increase. So we have to accept that there may be some more resource investment as well. But I think it's worth it, especially when we're talking about life and death skills.
So for the student who is now saying to themselves, this reality-based approach to training, I think is important. How can he or she evaluate ahead of time that what they're going to get is contextually appropriate for their lives?
Well, I think it's asking the instructor, or asking other students that are their peers who have gone through classes with that instructor, gone through certain classes, if they felt like it fit their needs. For example, one of the things that I think most instructors would agree is if you're taking a concealed carry class, you should use the gun that you're going to be carrying, or at least use a gun that is of the type that you're going to be carrying. So carry a Glock 26, but at the class you're going to shoot a Glock 17, not a huge difference. If you're going to carry a Glock 26, but you're going to go shoot the class with a SIG because why not? You just bought it and you really can't wait to get to the range and use it. Now you're doing something that starts to really leave the contextual realm of the gun you're going to carry. If you're going to talk to an instructor, your instructor is going to say, no, that's great, it really doesn't matter. Well, I think that instructor probably isn't the one that understands reality-based training or contextually appropriate training, as well as the guy who's going to say, you'll get 80% of the value, but you really are going to be better off if you use the same type of gun that you're going to use in class. This happens to me in the opposite way a lot. We'll get guys that carry 1911s, or that carry a SIG or any good double action, single action type gun, and they'll come to the class and they'll show up with a Glock or an M&P or an XD, and they'll say, well, I follow you online and I know these are the guns you like gun because I'm taking your class. I was like, well, that's great, except I don't want you to take the gun that you think I like. I want you to bring the gun that you're actually going to carry. And if in the process of the class you find the same flaws that I find, you're probably going to evolve to choosing a Glock or an XD or an M&P because it's actually a more efficient gun. And the problem is, if you come through the class with the Glock, but you don't understand what the flaws are with your gun, your own, when you're going and practicing with your gun. But it'd be a hell of a lot better to do it under the pressure of the class with the coaching. And if you've got that other gun, great, bring it, put it in the trunk. That's usually what we tell people. They'll say, well, I carry a 1911, but I know you like Glocks. What should we do? But let's start out with you shooting the gun that you were trusting last week, and that presumably you're going to trust the week after the class, and see if you change your mind. Because I've had plenty of students that come in, their guns run really well, and they run their guns really well. They're not a blank slate. So it makes more sense for them to stick with what's working for them than it does to change, because they do have a reliable gun and they do run it well. And to relearn a new weapon system wouldn't make any sense. And that to me is a reality-based instructor approach, as opposed to the instructor that's always going to say, yes, you must use no matter what. Or the other guy who's going to say, it doesn't matter what you use or what you shoot, you go ahead and do whatever you want. I think both of those things are flawed approaches and lack a reality basis.
How important is it for a student to progress to, say, doing some force on force work or progressing to doing scenario work? How important is it to defensive skill development to have that available?
I think that it's absolutely true that those things are incredibly valuable. I don't think it's a minimum that somebody has to meet. I think that it's all resource dependent. Unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people who either because of the instructor or the school that they are near or talk to or that they're enamored with, that they get thrown into scenario training or force on force type training way earlier than they should. Again, if I'm trying to evaluate a student's ability to apply a skill, I need to know that they have that skill first. If I'm trying to evaluate a student's ability to employ the right tactics or make the right decisions, I have to know that they've been trained what to do or they've thought about what to do and that they actually have a plan. Motion. This comes from Ken Murray and Training at the Speed of Life, and a lot of his information he's developed over years. He's one of the founders of the Simunitions Company. He's thought about reality-based force-on-force training more than just about anybody on the planet, probably, and teaches it all over the world to high-level military and law enforcement at the instructor development level. And what he'll tell you is that what you don't want to be doing is taking someone in the middle of a scenario and trying to rewrite their approach. Right? You want to make sure they have that approach in the first place, and all you're really doing in that scenario training is helping them to experience it and lay that script down in a very powerful, emotionally charged learning environment. So if they come into the room with no idea what to do and you throw a scenario at them that they have not been prepared for, you're really setting them up for a great degree of failure. And I used to do it that way. I used to use scenario training and force on force training going back 10, 15 years ago in ways that were almost designed to show students they can fail. And unfortunately, using that as a motivator to get them to then pay attention to what I was going to do next, which was teach them how not to fail. And I know there's still a lot of instructors out there doing that, and it's a flawed approach. It's an antiquated approach. It's really a misuse of this incredible teaching and learning and experiential tool that we have with scenario training, whether force on force or not. I think it's much more important that a student has gone through the training and the process of laying a plan down, learning a plan, thinking it through, vetting it, drilling it, rehearsing it, visualizing it, talking about it with their partners, their coworkers, their family, the other people that might be involved, and then getting into a scenario environment to see if they can actually execute that plan the way they thought they would when they're presented with an appropriate stimulus. And if not, then it's very easy for the instructor to hit that pause button and say, hey, what do you think's happening right now? Make sure the student has the right perspective of what's going on. So, okay, do you have a plan for that? Remind them that they do have a plan. And then when they say, yeah, I do have a plan. Are you executing it now, or could you be executing it in a better way? Or no. And if they say no, you may have to prompt them more. But as soon as they acknowledge, oh yeah, I'm off script, say, okay, cool. In 3 seconds, we're going to resume. 3, 2, 1, go, and let them get back on track. Let them make the better decision, change what they're doing to fit their script, and then have that experience laid down so that they really have gone through this high level simulation in a scenario the way that you want them to. And now they're much more likely to have confidence in their plan, have confidence in their ability that's appropriate, and then expect that they can see that plan play itself out if they ever enter into a real world situation that fits that context. If you take someone who hasn't gone through the training, hasn't developed the skills, hasn't thought about the plan, and you just throw them into a scenario, you throw them in the force on force, they're going to improvise. They might get lucky. They might do something completely different from their plan and feel like was success, and then leave with this crazy false sense of confidence that, oh, I can handle it, and go right back to training something that they actually didn't do, which again doesn't make sense. And we've seen that a lot. We've seen lots of people in the real world. They train something one way on the square range for years and years and years, and then they get into an actual defensive shooting. We have a dash camera video that shows something completely different from what they had been practicing. They were successful. They somehow credit their training with their success and then go right back to training in a way that looks nothing like what they actually did to survive their fight. And that in the 90s was the birth of my sort of breaking with what I was doing in the training methodologies that I would consider traditional at that time, and saying, this looks nothing like the way people are actually winning fights, especially when they're caught off guard, especially when they're not expecting to have to fight. So let's change the training model and again, make it reality based.
My first experience, I think my first experience, as I recall it, with a scenario training environment was a what I would call a Kobayashi Maru, a no-win scenario, and I know that a lot of people may have gone through those kinds of things as part of a scenario training, and if I'm hearing you right, there's really little to no value in doing that kind of no win gotcha scenario, right?
Yeah, I think, and here's the thing, and those scenarios work uh, in a very, very, very limited capacity. And the reason I think they became so popular, remember, so much of our training, especially when it comes to force on force, comes out of military and law enforcement experiences. And when you have guys that are in the military or law enforcement who are being forced to go to training that they may not be motivated to go to, they may not want to go through, they may not see a need for, it was an instructor trick. It was, okay, well, let's put them in a scenario and let them fail. And then the idea was that hopefully through that failure, they would be humbled or gain some humility or gain some perspective that would knock them down a peg essentially and gain their attention. If you look at the learning events, right? Gagne's learning events that we use as a guide in the CFS program and all the ICU training company programs, when we do instructor development, we talk about gaining a student's attention. Well, it can be a very powerful way to gain a student's attention when you put them into a scenario that they think they can handle, but it's so resource intensive. That alarm means that my wife is cooking dinner, but we'll just ignore that for a second. It's a rare occasion. It's kind of exciting. I'm gonna, just double check, but I'm pretty sure that.
Okay. Well, oh boy.
Okay, so we're all safe here.
Okay.
This is the time on Training Talk when we say goodnight. You guys enjoy. I'm gonna go poke the little smoke detector thing.
Okay. All right, Rob. Thanks.
Fire drills.
Bye-bye. Oh, the things that happen on a live show only on Training Talk, ladies and gentlemen. Do you get to witness Rob Pincus running to disable the smoke detector in his house because his wife is cooking dinner, and oh boy, is he going to pay for that later, I guarantee you. Anyhow, anyway, great talk about reality-based training and the progression of reality-based training to include force on force and scenario training, and great information there. And thank you, Rob, for coming on and doing that. I want to talk for just a moment before we bring on my second guest tonight, Caleb Causey from Lone Star Medic. I want to talk for just a moment about the premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. Now, you're no doubt familiar with the public side of Personal Defense Network, all the great free information that we put out there, the videos, the articles, all that kind of thing. Training Talk, I mean, this is one of them. Rob Pincus's live show that he does every month, and coming up on the 30th of this month, he's going to be doing another live show. But there's also a membership side to Personal Defense Network, and that's premium membership. And the premium membership side of Personal Defense Network has all kinds of exclusive videos and exclusive information that you don't get on the public side of Personal Defense Network, and extra long videos, long DVD length videos. I realize that DVDs are kind of going the way of the world, but we still use that to describe the length of the video, DVD length video. Lots of advanced information, video collections, so that if you want to know everything that there is to know about one topic, we've collected a whole bunch of videos that you can watch all together to learn about it. Great information on the premium side of Personal Defense Network. Now, normally premium membership is $34.95 a year, I think is what it is. But because you're listening to this show, you can get a deal on premium membership at Personal Defense Network. $10 for your first year. Now that's a bargain. That's a huge bargain, if you'll pardon the term. But great deal on premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. $10 for your first year now. to get that, all you have to do is look for one of the sign up boxes on just about any page here at Personal Defense Network. There'll be an option to sign up for premium membership. You can find that. If you don't see it, there's a link in the show notes that you can click on and do that. And when you get to checkout, in the coupon box, there's a little box there where you can put a coupon code. Put in the word Grant 10. That's GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, all one word, and check out, and you'll get your first year membership, premium membership here at Personal Defense Network for only $10. It's a steal. It's a bargain. And I think that you'll find that it's well worth the $34.95 a year, but I think you're going to find it a screaming deal at $10. Now, I've been a premium membership, of course, since we started it here at Personal Defense Network, and I haven't seen everything that's there. There's just that much great information. So take advantage of this offer, $10 for your first year premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. And the code GRANT10, GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, and you'll get membership for $10 for your first year. I'm going to sit up in my chair a little bit because I'm slipping. So, and don't forget, by the way, the Personal Defense Network free weekly newsletter. And again, any place on the site, you can sign up for it. There is a link in the show notes. If you're watching this on the Personal Defense Network site, there is a link in the show notes to sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Now, this goes out to literally hundreds of thousands of people every week. What do they know that you don't? Well, it's that Personal Defense Network puts out great free information as well. And by getting subscribed to the weekly newsletter, you'll get all the information about new premium information that's put up, new premium videos, new articles, announcements about Training Talk Show. So you never miss this show. Announcement about Rob Pincus's monthly live show, so you never miss one of those. And great resource. I use it myself, quite frankly, to keep up on what's going on at Personal Defense Network, because there's always something happening. And if it weren't for the newsletter, I'd miss at least half of it. And I'm on the site every day. So just use the link on the page here. If you're not on the Personal Defense Network site, go to personaldefensenetwork.com, look up Training Talk, look up any of the episodes, and you'll see the link to sign up for the newsletter. And of course, there are lots of places on the site itself, all over the place, for you to sign up for the newsletter. It's a great resource. It really is. So it's time to bring on my second guest expert of the evening. Caleb Causey from Lone Star Medics is our medical expert here at Personal Defense Network. Great guy, great instructor, and he's going to be talking tonight about medical kits. Everyday carry medical kits, minimalist medical kits that you can use to save your life or maybe the life of somebody else. Caleb, you there?
I'm here. How you doing, Grant? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Wonderful. Well, thanks for coming on tonight.
Sure. Thank you guys for having me. Hopefully, Rob, everything's okay there and he doesn't burn down Western HQ there.
I think he's going to be in trouble with his wife for telling people it was because she was cooking dinner. I think oh boy, he's had it. That's oh, anyway. So like I said, only on a live show, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get the discussion started here about medical kits, and we've talked before about the importance of training to deal with life-threatening trauma. We've talked about the kind of stuff that you need to deal with life-threatening trauma. The question is, how can people carry this with them every day? What are the minimums that they need to do, and how can they carry it?
Sure. And and every time we have this conversation, I always bring up those 4 questions I want folks to ask themselves before when they're choosing or picking, their medical equipment, their EDC kit, or for medicine or for medical equipment or whatnot. And it's 1, what is it you're going to be doing? Okay. What is your activity you're going to be conducting? 2, what type of environment you're going to be conducting that activity or mission or whatever in? 3, how many people are you immediately responsible for? And number 4, what's your level of training? So if we were to just say, looking at those 4 questions, well, okay, I'm going to, I'm going to run some errands on my way to the office. This morning, I got to drive in traffic, and I go sit in a cubicle, and then I go pick up the kids, and then I come home. Okay. The environment, well, it's Texas, and it's going to be 110 degrees outside today. So, those are some things you got to think of. My environment, it's traffic, it's, commercial and residential areas in an urban environment. And then how many people am I responsible for? Well, primarily me, number one. Okay. And then two, maybe if I've got the wife in the car, if I've got family members or whatnot, maybe they've got their own kit too. And then my level of training, sure, I'm a medic. So I've kind of been around the block. I'm still new to medicine at 15 plus years of career, but that's the way I answer those 4 questions. So if we were to, one of the first things that we've got to look at is we want to control bleeding. And then when we really break down what we're trying to accomplish, is we're just trying to stay alive and keep people alive until the medics can get there, until EMS can get there, and then EMS keeps them alive until they can get to the ER. The ER keeps them alive till they can go to the OR, and the OR is where we actually fix people. Okay, so in order to do that, well, we're going to be the first. I don't want to say the term first responders necessarily, because that term gets thrown around a lot, but we're going to be the first people there to apply the first bandage and to start treating stuff. So the only 2 things are what I'm really concerned about, or 3, is circulation, airway, and breathing. Circulation being 2 things. 1, are they bleeding anywhere? Okay, so let's stop there and fix those. Well, if they're bleeding out of the arms and legs, we know that, okay, we're going to need a tourniquet. Okay, so a tourniquet, tourniquets, as hopefully everybody is up to speed on those. That is our first line defense against moderate to severe bleeding out of the arms and legs. I've got one here, a soft T wide. Actually, I don't know if we can see this with my little chintzy camera on my
it's perfect.
laptop there. And I've got it together using a Filster flat pack tourniquet holster. We'll talk about that. And that's kind of a cool thing. I'll bring that up here in a second. But I've got a soft T wide here. And of the tourniquets, I'd recommend either a soft T wide from Tactical Medical Solutions, and a combat application tourniquet from North American Rescue, and that's it. There's plenty of other tourniquets out there in the market, but they still have far too many cons versus pros when you compare them to the soft T wide or the cat. So the soft T wide, I've got, and then let's see. As far as here's the cat. Okay. And if you've got, so you need to carry a tourniquet. One of those options, how do you carry it, right? That's one of the things we were talking about tonight is, okay, everyday carry. Well, I talked about it with the Filster flat pack. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got orange tape wrapped around it so my students don't walk off with it. But it's basically a belt slide, okay? And they make them, and it actually comes where you can actually attach it with the malice clip as well. So if you have some MOLLE or PALS webbing, you can attach it there, horizontal or vertical. I've worn this on my belt for a couple of months. Gave it a try. I like it. It works. Just like anything else, you start wearing a lot of stuff on your belt, you got to think about is, hey, I'm running out of real estate to some degree. I'm still not a fan of carrying medical equipment on the small of your back or behind you, just because it's difficult to access that. And we've learned that even from our defensive firearms training, that, hey, most of us don't carry in the small of our back because that's just really bad. But carrying the Filster flat pack, here's it is just by itself. Got these elastic loops, bungee cord thing here, and it just wraps around the tourniquet and hooks to deploy it. It's pretty cool. I'm going to drop it here, but I'll hook inside my fingers there, and as soon as I pop those, I fell out fairly quick and deployed pretty quick. So that's one option. Another option here from another PDN contributor, Chris Fry, and with MDTS training and Raven Concealment, their pocket shield. Now, this is going to look a little weird. Oh, Bear with me. Inside I'm wearing this with a pair of blue jeans here, a pair of Levi's. The pocket shield, which y'all are familiar with. Okay. And then I've gone here, I just simply rubber banded a soft T wide and a package of Quick Clot combat gauze.
Wow.
Get the clear out of there. And they're just rubber banded on the back there. And I've been trying this out for the past couple of months now, and wearing jeans and a T-shirt. And I just simply rubber banded a soft T wide and a package of Quick Clot combat gauze. Wow. And they're just rubber banded on the back there. And I've been trying this out for the past couple of months now, and wearing jeans and a T-shirt. Especially I had some friends that said, hey, I can't wear a lot of stuff in my belt, or I've got to wear a shirt tucked in, or then what's an option for me wearing this stuff? And I wear cargo shorts, so the ankle kit's out of place. Seems to be pretty good here. There are some pros and cons to all of the different methods of carry here, and we'll talk about that as we get closer to the end here. The other option too, let's see if this works here. I don't know if y'all can see. Is that coming in okay, Grant?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the Tactical Medical Solutions ankle rig. And I've got the soft T wide, quick clot combat gauze, and then the Russell chest seal. And to deploy it, you just simply pull the tourniquet out. And as I undo it, well, then these actually are Velcroed into here. Okay, the chest seal and the combat gauze. And the you think, well, where's your pressure advantage? Well, you take your combat gauze, okay, and then the wrap itself is got a little elasticity to it, and it's got intermittent Velcro on it, and that doubles as actually your as the pressure bandage when you combine it with the combat gauze. And a little trick of the trade here that I learned from my friends from Watson Knives is to take some extra duct tape, tape it up top there, and that way because you think well, maybe I'm injured and I've only got one hand, and trying to find that little tab there may be a little difficult. So he actually, I give him credit. I don't know where he learned it from, but Watson Knives, my buddy there. And the idea is you can stand on that. You can hand it to somebody else, but you can stand on that and tear that open one-handed fairly easy and render aid to yourself. So that's been done on all my combat gauze there, just a piece of duct tape there. But another one from ITS Tactical, okay, is their EDC kit that they've upgraded here over the years. And it comes in a little plastic vacuum sealed kit. You've got a soft T wide and a package of combat gauze and a pair of nitrile gloves. Now, this kit's been really cool. I've really started playing with this and seen, the versatility. We'll figure it out. But of this kit, because it comes with 2 different pouches, and I've been carrying it in the back pocket of my blue jeans for a while, and then I also the guys at ITS, they showed me the another pouch. And it's you can either malice clip it, and I don't know if you can tell, but you can also fit a belt slide through for a vertical carry, or you can actually belt slide it through the side for horizontal. I don't know if you guys can see through there.
Yeah.
In the kit, so it's pretty cool there. With that, it's pretty versatile. My 2 favorites so far have been definitely the Tac Med Solutions ankle kit, which I think on our YouTube channel we've got a demonstration on, and with PDN, Rob and I showed it off on one of the videos there too. And then also is the from Chris Fry, when he created this kind of a pocket organizer, if you will. But this is pretty cool here. I've been, this is working out pretty well. Go ahead.
I'm looking at that and thinking that for the guy who's dressed in a suit all the time, that would fit in the pocket of a suit, wouldn't it?
It can, depending of course on your clothing and whatnot. You've got depending on the fabric,
right,
the suit you're wearing that day. But I haven't personally tried it on a pair of slacks yet, dress pants. I've worn the ankle rig. Actually, I wore the ankle in my tux on my wedding day.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of the pocket on the suit jacket itself. That big
on the coat
big pocket. Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, one thing that speaking of suit pockets, that's the folks from Pierce Medical. They've got the folks that make the Israeli bandage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're familiar with the Israeli bandage. Well, one of their new products is the Wound Stop. Now, this one here is a little bit different. Get the glare out of there. Okay, this one actually, when you open this up, on the inside here, you've got this little bandage. And think of this as just like a little smaller miniature Israeli dressing.
Okay.
It's their emergency bandage. And it doesn't have that pressure bar that you double back through, but it does have the little fishing hooks there at the end, so you can anchor it, and that's pretty cool. So for wearing if you're wearing a suit and tie that day, you could very easily keep this in your suit, your coat pocket, on the inside or even on the outside, and it's super lightweight. So it wouldn't even have any. There's no bulkiness. It doesn't print. It's not adding a lot of weight at all. It weighs about as much as a Sharpie, probably.
Wow. Perfect.
But as far as the contents themselves, I mean, we've got all these different ways of carrying it. But what are we looking at? Well, you've noticed I've carrying a lot. I mentioned a lot about tourniquets. I've also mentioned a lot about the combat gauze having a hemostatic agent, and then chest seals. It's good to have chest seals. If we're talking about, like I said, circulation being, hey, are they bleeding anywhere? Okay, we solved that. Do they have a pulse? Yeah. Okay, good. Then we check your airway and breathing. Well, if I've got holes in the lungs there from gunshot wounds, stab wounds, or penetrating trauma, I've got to solve those problems real quick. We talked about the Russell chest seal. And there's two types of chest seals really when it comes down to it out there in the market. And everybody gets really confused on them. And it's pretty simple. Basically, if somebody has holes anywhere in the rib cage, then we need to put a giant sticker on them. And not just scratch and sniff Snickers or anything, but we got to put, some kind of chest seals, whether it's the beacon here, okay, or the Russell chest seal. And the two different types are occlusive and non-occlusive. And basically one has a vent and the one does not. And the cool thing about these new beacons here, the combo packs from Tactical Medical Solutions, is they actually come with two chest seals, one with the vent. And I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick this up. You guys, if you can see, the 4 different holes there, okay, that's the vent, and then here's one without the vent. So if you have an entrance wound, you may have a exit wound. Well, put this one on, the front usually, okay, and then this one back here on the back. In the Russell, it's really cool when you open it up. This one looks a little gross because we use them in class, but if you can see that hole in the middle, that diamond there, I can actually fit my finger all the way up inside there. That's the one-way valve. Both are pretty heavy duty and pretty durable. They're pretty sticky even when sweaty, bloody, and muddy. So that's a pretty good deal there for chest seals, which is important. But basically what we're looking at is keeping the blood in the body and making sure we're not breathing out in and out of any new holes. I would say at a bare minimum for everyday carry, a tourniquet, some type of hemostatic agent. I'm a fan of the combat gauze, quick clot combat gauze, and then a chest seal of some sort. Okay. And they've got, there's several out there in the market, pros and cons of all of those, all the products out there.
Question for you. It's okay to, for instance, the chest seals come in a fairly good sized pouch. It's okay to fold those things?
Some of them, like the Halo chest seals, I think I've had, let's see, I've got one that's still folded up. I'm not sure when we finally opened it up, it stayed compressed under a couple of phone books. Don't ask where I found the phone books. Okay. Last time you saw a phone book, think about that. But just to see how folded up they could stay and would still have some memory. From my understanding, the company that makes the Halo seals, they've had some that are still going on several years, more than they should, just to see if they maintain any memory or not. But the beacons, the Russells, they're a little bit softer, as you can see, the packaging. So even that's how it comes packaged.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, well, here's the packaging actually, but I can still fold that up probably into something like that. But the problem is now it starts to get a little bunchy and kind of a little bit thicker. But the beacons, here's an unopened package. You can see how thin that is. I could probably fold that up if I really wanted to. I'm still finding out on the beacons whether or not how much you really want to start folding those, because we noticed on some of the other ones when you fold the plastic backing, I guess, the non-sticky part, when you fold it, and it comes folded in half, but when you fold it over a second time, that point actually may actually start tearing up a little bit on that one-way valve there, and we don't want that. So with chest seals, they're not exactly like the tourniquet and the combat gauze. You do have to kind of treat them with kit gloves, so you don't want to fold them up too much. If you are carrying chest seals, we talked about on the body of everyday carry. I don't know if you guys can see. I've got this backpack here from Vertex. It's their Gamut Plus. It's what I carry a lot with, because I'm always traveling and whatnot with teaching on the road and stuff. And so it's the Gamut Plus. So it's a little large for everyday carry, but they do make the regular Gamut. And the cool thing is it looks like a regular backpack, but it's got
cool.
plenty of MOLLE here you can deploy. And now I've got more tourniquets. I've got a collapsible litter in here. I've got myself a space blanket. I've got the Benchmade rescue hook, all medical gear, and that's all PALS webbing. But just to give, so if you can put your chest seals in there if you need to, in another pouch or another carry or go bag or whatever, or backpack, you've got different options. It's not always just on jeans and a t-shirt. It may be in your briefcase. It may be in, the wife may keep one in her handbag, or, hey, it's something we store in the vehicle kit too.
Cool. I want to, while you're here, I wanted to very quickly and take just a couple of minutes on a question that I actually got, or a statement that I got rather, as a private message on Facebook. I had shared an article on, trauma response and why people need to learn how to do that. And somebody responded to me and said, I really don't want to do that because I'm afraid that if I helped a stranger, that I would be held liable if something went wrong. Now, with the understanding that neither one of us are lawyers and this is not legal advice, can you address that in just a couple of minutes?
Sure. Every state, from my understanding, again, like you said, full disclosure, I'm not going to try and interpret law. I've had my lawyer buddies say that that's even bad to try to do. But from my understanding, and like I said, seek out professional lawyers and attorneys for this information, but in your own hometown there. But every state has what they call the Good Samaritan law. And more or less what this Good Samaritan law states is that as long as you are not showing, as long as you don't have any malicious intent while trying to render aid, then it's going to be difficult for anybody to prove that you pulled someone out of the car while you were doing so, you paralyzed them. Well, that's no fault of yours. You can't be held liable for that. You don't have X-ray vision. You're not a healthcare trained, healthcare professional with access to backboards and C-collars and all this stuff. So, that's not really fair for you as the bystander to be, kind of pun intended, judged that way. So there are most states. I know in Texas we have a Good Samaritan law, and they're really good. They try to, it's kind of there to protect the layperson so that when they are rendering aid, yes, as long as you're not doing anything crazy and any advanced procedures, like a big question we get a lot of is the decompression needles. People are like, hey, should I carry those? How do I use it? I'm like, well, first you go to paramedic school, or EMT school, then you go to paramedic school and they'll show you. That's the quick answer. But as soon as you take that needle and you stick it in somebody, even though it may work, you may be trained up on it in somebody else's class. We don't train the layperson in how to use it in our classes. But that's an invasive technique and procedure, and you can kill people very quickly if you do it wrong. So decompressing the chest with that needle, that's a little out of the scope. That's now, you're no longer the Good Samaritan. You're practicing medicine without a license, which also happens to be, from my understanding, a felony. Right. We don't want to do that. So as long as you have the good intentions and you're doing whatever any normally other person would do to help, then you should be okay. Granted, we all know anybody can sue anybody for anything, anytime. But the Good Samaritan laws are out there. I encourage people to look into the Good Samaritan laws. You can probably Google it with your, with your state and see what it is. And I'm sure everybody's got some type of friend that's a lawyer.
So consult your local lawyer, everybody, and do your research ahead of time. All right, we've got about 60 seconds left. So tell us, Caleb, how people can get in touch with you and where they can find you.
Sure. Well, right off the bat, we're going to be touring with the 2017 PDN tour, training tour next year. We'll have the dates up with everybody there here, hopefully within the next week. And but LoneStarMedics.com, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I've actually started messing around with that this year. But LoneStarMedics.com, and we'll actually be out a couple different PDN contributors here, finishing up the year, doing some classes with Chris Fry, William April, and LoneStarMedics.com.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming on and talking medical kits with us tonight. I do appreciate it very much, and we hope to have you on again soon. All
Thanks,
right,
Grant.
everybody, we're just about out of time now. Thanks to Caleb Causey and for Rob Pincus for coming on the show tonight and talking with us. And don't forget the premium membership offer here at Personal Defense Network, $10 for your first year. The code GRANT10, GRANT10, all one word. Put that in at checkout. Don't forget the free Personal Defense Network newsletter. Sign up for that. Get advanced notice of all the stuff that's happening. Don't forget Rob Pincus's monthly live show, which is happening November 30th, I believe, this month. It's on the Personal Defense Network website, of course. Don't miss that. I understand it's going to be a free-for-all. Questions for Rob. So don't miss that. Our next show is going to be the first Thursday of December, which I believe is the 1st of December. So check that out. Same time, same place, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Personal Defense Network. And again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on our next show. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.